Salve GBA fans, it's Xilicks here, and welcome back to more of the Fantasy League. We are nearing the end of the season and the end of Fantasy, and with that, the total ranking is coming. We've decided to delay it to the end of the season, but we have a system to calc up all of the scores that every player has earned, thanks to Dallas Star you once again. But yeah, let's get right into this week of Fantasy. Interesting week. We had some very interesting offensive and defensive ones last week, and I predict there may be a couple more interesting ones in the upcoming week. So let's get right into the last week recap. Alright, so taking a look at our recap, our top player last week was Slar99, sorry if I butcher your name, scoring 40 points, so congratulations there. Our all-star was Defensive Umbreon, scoring 19 points, a very interesting one. There was a pretty long match that went to timer. I believe it was 5-4 match. I don't remember the exact score, but either way, very long match, and Umbreon was on the field for most of the match, setting up wishes, heal bells, taking some super effective hits here and there, scoring it quite a few points. Then looking at our Coach of the Week, we had a tie between Hoodlum Scrafty and the Alolan Athletic, and MV Coach of the San Diego Chimchargers. They both scored 4-0. Moving right along to the fan document, linked down below in the description. If you go to the Week 10 tab, you'll be able to see all of the scores from last week. So here are all the coaches' scores based on their performance last week in differential. So if you pick those coaches, this is what you get. Here was our All-Star Umbreon getting the 19 points, and then the bonus if you picked it as the All-Star for 24. Don't think anyone picked that one this week. Then we have my score from last week. I scored 35 points, so I believe only 2 people were higher than me this week. So you guys are slacking. Come on, you can do better than that. Looking at our top 3 offensive, we have Azumarill from the Philadelphia Sizzler scoring 17 points with a little bit of a belly drum sweep at the end of its match. We have Heatran from the Florida Gators scoring 15 points. Again, had a couple late game kills there in a row. And then we have Venusaur from the Free State Torcats getting quite a bit of offensive points with 11. Moving over to our defensive side, we have our All-Star from the San Francisco Giants being Umbreon, scoring that 19 points that we talked about earlier. We have Hippowdon from the Utah Jasmine scoring 11 points, and Skarmory from the New Orleans Pelipers also scoring 11. Just gonna quickly scroll through so you guys can see all of the points that the other ones got. Remember, you can find all of these stats and more on the fan document under the Week 10 tab. Alright, now moving over to our player scores. These can be found on the fantasy sheet linked below. Once you're at the fantasy sheet, use Control F to find your username and scroll all the way to the right to see your total score as well as the score for the rest of your mons. As we can see, our top player this week is sitting there with 40 points, and everyone else is below in their respective order. Alright, now taking a look at our You Pick 6. Remember, if you want to play along with the Fantasy League, fill out the Google form linked below. These are going to be my picks this week. You don't have to follow them, but if you need some guidance on a few picks or you're unsure, maybe you can look towards this as a guide. One thing I want to mention before we get into it is all of the matches that are happening in Week 11 are mirrors of the matches in Week 2. So if you want to go back to Week 2 on the fan document or on the fantasy sheet and see which mons did well, you may want to do that. Maybe you don't want to do that. Maybe you just want to base your predictions entirely off of team matchup or how the coaches play. I kind of did that, not entirely though, as there have been a few team changes since Week 11 all across the board. So I do have relatively unique picks this week compared to what I originally picked. So starting off with my first offensive pick, I have Greninja from the Tampa Bay Luxrays. Now, Tampa Bay Luxrays go against the Pittsburgh Piratas, and the only thing that really switches into Greninja, at least that I see on paper, would be like the Blissey. And if the Greninja's physical, which we have seen before with like Waterfall and whatnot, yeah, this thing could be definitely pretty threatening. I definitely pick Greninja a lot as a offensive mon, but it's just because, you know, having speed and a wide variety of coverage moves makes offensive mons very threatening, and I see that capability in Greninja and hope that it can pull through for me this week. Next up, I've picked Excadrill from the Alola Athletic. They play the Milwaukee Sawsbucks, and really, the Sawsbucks don't have any response to Excadrill late game if it gets up sand. Early game, they do have some defensive responses where Excadrill would have to 2, maybe even 3 hit KO, but if Callum is able to preserve this Excadrill late game, or even set up a Swords Dance mid game with a sand up, yeah, not much is really going to be able to beat this thing. As far as like priority that Magnitude has on the front side, you see like Lycanroc, and that's not doing anything to an Excadrill, so yeah, I could be missing a thing or two, but even if I am, I still feel that Excadrill will be able to put in a lot of work if it is able to pull off a late or mid-game sweep. My final offensive pick for Week 11 is going to be the Thunderous T from the San Jose Sharpedos. We saw this thing do very well last week, scoring 4 kills, and I predict a potentially similar thing in this match. So they do play the Utah Jasmine, and the Utah Jasmine, as far as their ways of dealing with electric types go, they have Lantern and Hippowdon, which are both weak to either a Grass Knot or a HP Grass. They may have more, not really looking at the team right now, but that being said, the Thunderous also has quite a few ways of knocking out some of their offensive threats, like the Swallow being weak to electric, the Manaphy being weak to electric, the Breloom is weak to like a Hidden Power Flying or whatever. So yeah, this Thunderous, hopefully, if it has, you know, either the right coverage or the right item, maybe the right playing, it'll definitely put in a lot of offensive pressure this week, and I'm hoping that it will score me quite a few points. Moving over to the defensive side, my first pick is Celebi from the Borussia Donphan, and they play the San Francisco Arcanines this week. Now, I kind of like Celebi as a pick just because George has things like the Garchomp and the Raikou and the Suicune. Celebi has quite a few ways to resist some of the more offensive or bulkier offensive mons that the Arcanines have. Now, obviously, the Arcanines have a way of killing it with like the Mismagius, the Entei, and I imagine that Lars is going to play around those mons. But if Celebi, if it's more of like a utility mon with maybe like, I don't know, Heal Bell or Recover to heal itself up and take hits, maybe even take some like Volt Switches or whatever for resisted hits, that'd be super cool. I'm not totally confident with this defensive pick, but I do like it, which is why I went with it. Next up, I have the Pyukumuku from the Florida Gators. They play the Philadelphia Scissors this week, and the reason why I picked Pyukumuku is because, you know, it can resist like the Ice Beam from the Kyurem, it resists like the fire moves from Volcanion, the water moves. I'm, again, not insanely confident with this mon, as the Scissors definitely do have quite a few ways of knocking it out, but if the Pyukumuku is unaware versus like a Belly Drum Azu, it'll be able to take those water hits like they're nothing, so that's pretty cool. And yeah, overall, not insanely happy about my defensive picks, but I think that they'll be able to get at least a few points to keep me in the positive and not go negative. Speaking of points going negative, my final defensive pick is the Clefable. Now, the Clefable from the St. Louis Rampardos, they went against the Free State Torcats Week 11 and also in Week 2, and I believe in the Week 2 matchup this thing did get O-code, which was a negative defensive point. That being said, I don't think it's going to happen twice, and Clefable is very capable of sitting on the field for a large majority of the match, barring like a Poisonium Z from the Weavile, which we did see in Week 2 and we may see again in Week 11. However, again, I imagine that it's going to be played around this time, or maybe the Clefable will be able to get points earlier on in the match, because we have seen Dan lead off with Clefable sometimes, or even utilize it very early in the matchup, and if it does get brought, I imagine that it'll be able to score quite a few defensive or utility points. Alright, so that is going to be it for the fantasy video this week. Make sure to fill out the forum down below, check out the links down below, make sure to join the Discord if you haven't already. It's the best way to get updated on fantasy, talk with the coaches, talk with the fans, talk with the analysts, all that stuff. And with the end of the season, as there isn't going to be videos for a while, you guys want to make sure you can stay in touch with other fans and everyone else who's in the community. It's a great time, you don't want to miss out on it. But yeah, that's all I have for you guys today. I'll see you guys next time. Okay, thanks, bye.